Hey guys, this is House of Ramirez. Y'all already know what's up. I'm over here kicking it with my friend, my sister, the one and only Jenna. So, Jenna, I'm so excited to have you on my show. It's truly an honor. I have a few questions for you. I think that it's important that we all pay attention to what you're doing. It's very interesting as well as motivating. Jenna, let's go ahead and just kick it off, okay? Can you tell myself and our readers and our viewers and listeners who you are and about your upbringing? Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I feel the same way about you. I think what you're doing is super motivating and super important, and we should all pay attention. And you, just like my friend Angel, you guys created a platform to talk about these things and see people and appreciate people. And I am honored to be asked to talk to you. So there's that. Second, hi, everybody. I'm Jenna. Upbringing. I am in Nashville now. I've been here for 3 years, but I actually am from New York originally. I am from Queens and Brooklyn. Most of my family was in Brooklyn. I was raised in Woodhaven, Queens, by mostly a single mom, but she also had a boyfriend of 13 years, and they were both private investigators. So with that, I remember being super young, like just about to walk, and they would actually take me on surveillances with them, where we would follow people and they'd take pictures of me, but really they'd be taking pictures of people behind me. So lots of weird stuff like that, which I think is probably part of the reason I got super interested in just human behavior and people in general. Growing up in Queens, just used to, every culture, every food that you can imagine, and that's what's normal. And I've been talking about this a lot recently, that I think when you grow up a certain way, especially when you're in New York, you have the tendency to be not humble about certain things. And you're like, everything's like this, everything must be like New York. And it's not. It's really not. Living in Nashville now, or even just my boyfriend, like most people, I think, actually didn't grow up with the experience of being so close to so many different people. And I don't know, I think that's one of the main reasons I draw, and I want to just point out certain people that are awesome and hang on to them and recognize just different cultures and foods. I'm just as passionate about food as I am about drawing.
Yeah.
So those are, some of the things just growing up in New York that made me who I am today, for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And a lot of people, we tend to not really pick up on what we've been through in our lives that made us who we are today, the great being that we are. You are a great being. And you have picked up on that, and you created Jenna Made This. And it's just so inspirational to see. It's moving. It's a work of art. Can you tell us about Jenna Made This?
That is so funny. I shared this with you a little bit already, but I had a artist block for some time. I had been, just from my upbringing, I have always wanted to work since I was really young. I remember asking if I could work at like age 8, and as soon as I was allowed to, you get that little, you're allowed to work card. You're no longer a kid slave. You can do this legally. I was super excited. And I started with something else, actually handing out flyers for this place called Project Challenge. And it was just a way to get kids off the streets, kind of. And I did a fashion show for them once, but we're talking about 9-10 years old. But I started as a dishwasher at 12 in restaurants. And the way my life worked out, I actually needed to provide for myself. So it's interesting that I had that drive. It's like something in me told me, like, girl, you're going to need this. You better be ready. And I kept going and working. And I always drew as a kid, and I drew through my school years, basically the years where it was like, you have the mental space to do that because you're not stressing out and you're not in survival mode. I was drawing, and I would do little things to like cheer people up if they were having a bad day, just things like that, or paint my emotions, but that stopped, once I had to provide for myself and I was in survival mode, I was just giving everything I had to work and to the people that worked with me or for me. Just like, I'm very empathetic. I like absorb all the emotions around me. So I was doing that. And in hospitality, like all it is emotions and trying to make people feel good. So when I'd get home, I was too tired. You know, I'd eat and then go to bed or like watch some show, which I have nothing against watching shows, but we all know there can be sort of like, you know, it's time to shut off essentially, which is needed, but I needed a balance. And I did not have that for so long. I honestly felt like in restaurants, you work so hard and so long that I would get like a 3-day weekend by accident and be like, where am I going? This is my chance. And I would go by myself I went to Roatan once, which is an island off of Honduras. Nice. And I went by myself, and we can talk about females traveling solo another time, but that should be a topic one day. But I realized like, oh my God, these are the only times you're actually checking in with yourself. Like you're going, you're shutting off, you're going. And then all of a sudden, like, yeah, it's like, oh, how do you feel? Oh, you're writing in your journal. Like, what are the things you want to do, you know, that you're not doing? I was doing that like once a year. That's sick. You know, there's something wrong with that. And I kept doing that for a long time. And I wasn't drawing enough. I had that block. And then the pandemic happened. And when the pandemic happened, I had nothing but time because, as we all know, it has impacted restaurants greatly and everything shut down. And for me, it was April that I was home. And I had time all of a sudden. And I was like, man, everybody's going through it right now. I still want to make them feel good like I would when I was managing or just like knowing about their day. And I thought about the girls that I worked with and started doing this whole thread of something I called Quarantined Queens. And it was just a way for me to be like, hey, look at this person. This is what she's working on. Hey, you're special. Like, look at her, everyone. Give her a little pat on the back, you know? And it started there. And I was doing more like on paper, colored pencil, sometimes watercolor. Then I just wanted to draw patterns, and I was hand drawing patterns on paper, which is, I mean, it's endless. It's torture more than anything, actually. It's like, I was just thinking like, I'd much rather draw one example of this thing so detailed, give it all my love, and then repurpose it on a piece of paper to make a pattern. And I had been against iPads and technology for so long, kind of like the same way if anyone's a musician, like if you play the piano and people are suggesting you get a keyboard, it's like there's something in you that's like so against that. It's also like reading a real book versus a Kindle. There's something in me that's like way more nostalgic about things that like I was so opposed to an iPad, but I tried it out. And I got like a good deal on eBay, because I didn't want to go all in, and got an iPad pencil and started doing patterns. I'm like, this is amazing. And it actually made my artwork better because I tried more things, because I was able to undo them. It's like, you can always draw over something for sure, but like it's different than undoing, and it's like clean again. And it just changed everything. So I kept going and just kept drawing and drawing. And I was trying to challenge myself first to like one thing a week. Then I was like, do I want to do one a day? And then I dial that back. It's like, all right, don't make yourself hate it. And I kept going. And Jenna Made This actually came about because somebody was trying to get me to do more like pattern work and wallpaper and market it to, do like collaborative efforts for pillows or like something like Jonathan Adler, like for Target, those kinds of things. And they're like, what do you want to call it? And it ended up being Pearl and Bass first, which is my grandparents' maiden names, because I wanted to honor them, because I'm very driven by nostalgia again. But it didn't say anything. I was like, yeah, sure, that means something to me, but what the hell is it? Like, what are you offering? What is Pearl? It just sounded like another blank and blank. I feel like things are getting very trendy in that area. So
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling with that name before I really delved into everything. And then I was like, Jenna made this encompasses everything, kind of like House Ramirez hugs all the things that you're trying to support. It was the same thing. It's like, Jenna made this. If I decide to do sculptures next week, it still works. It's just, that's it. Jenna made this, and it could be anything.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's beautiful, because you have this drive that's been in you for so long. You said you started drawing at a very young age, and then you were fully into it when you were not having that mind blocked of worrying about life. You were in school. When we're all in school, we tend to pick up on what we're good at. And then
Yeah.
when we jump into adulthood, then we begin to tamper that, or cover it up and just hide it, push it to the side. But then, you realize that that's something that you're good at, and you started blossoming into what we know now as Jenna made this. I
It's
love
so
it.
funny, like, because you have all the voices in your head from a young age, whether it's your environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sore subject for me with school, because I sometimes always thought, like, man, I just love encouraging people, like, and getting them the right information so that they can make happy decisions in life. And I always felt
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know how it was where you grew up, but like in New York, I feel like we were all shorted with our guidance counselor system. I feel like it's really important to identify what people are naturally drawn to, and then just even give them a website or a book that shows, hey, if you're interested in this is what it could lead to, and then go from there. But instead, it's just so like doctor, lawyer, teacher, cop, like, these are the options in the world that you can see right in front of you.
Yeah.
Go do that. And if you're an
Mm-hmm.
artist or a musician, or even an athlete, like, you can try.
Right. And
It's like,
and they don't push or encourage that. They kind of like, well, it's just the way that the way things are. People, even older generations, things are molding, things are changing.
they're
But
definitely changing now. Yeah.
mhm.
I see even the younger generation that's come up, like in their 20s now, they're really pushing their artistic sides. They're pushing entrepreneurship. They're like, no, I'm not buying into that. And I think that's great. I think that our generation, I know that we have 6 years between us, but I think it still happened for you. Like,
Mhm.
we still had our grandparents' generation behind us, kind of like, is that going to be a lucrative career for you?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it comes from their experience. It's not like they screwed us up or anything, but we just had so many voices in our heads, and a lack of information as well. Yeah, I feel
Mhm.
like there are so many options where if you identify what someone's interested in, let's say they like to draw. Hey, did you know you could be an engineer? Like,
Mm.
you could do all sorts of things. You could Sorry, that was my cat. Did you actually
That's
hear that?
fine. Yeah, it's cute though. It's okay.
Marie, come on, Marie. Marie's like, I
It's
want to be
okay.
an engineer.
Right. But
There are just so many ways you can go, but
yep.
like, they're not right in front of people's faces, and they're not being shared in school or discussed, because unfortunately there's like this
Mhm.
rigid curriculum that they feel that they have to teach you to test properly. And I feel like that lack of information, it just slows people down,
Mhm. But
and
we're picking up,
we are.
and we're picking up where our grandparents and our parents failed to. And I wouldn't say failed, because they did their best. What I would say is, where they didn't get a chance to see, we're
Sorry.
getting a chance to see,
Yeah.
and we're getting the opportunity to change the narrative for our youth, and not just our youth, ourselves, Jenna.
Ourselves,
We're
yes.
we're able to change the narrative for who we are, not just women, not just young men, but all around, and like you said, we're seeing the opportunity of what we're able to do to bring to the table and change it.
Yes.
Even if you're an artist, if you want to go into, like you mentioned, being an engineer, you could do that. Do you know how many people have to write or draw out blueprints? Of course, there's machines now, But you know how many people have to draw out, even on the computer, blueprints for big industrial parts, for buildings, for it's just architecture. Come on now, you know,
There's
like
so
it
much.
just
There's so much you could do if that's what you're interested in. But yeah, I think when the pandemic happened, it was like, well, how do you want to spend your time? And I just started I knew that I didn't want to spend time only doing what I did before when I was home, which is like I said, you kind of like need to shut it off for a second and decompress from like all the emotions. And I'm like, well, I can't do that all day. You know, like then you start to realize what shutting off is. You're like, wow, this is endless. Like,
exactly.
What am I going to bed from? You know, like I was shut off the whole day. So I just started to do like what I wanted to do with my time. And I would recommend that to anybody, like whoever is interested in entrepreneur. Like I didn't even think about it being entrepreneurship. It was just like, what do you feel like doing? Do it. And then see what happens. It's so funny how they're like, oh, you know, things open doors. It really does. Even during Christmas, I was like December was intense for me. I'm also a very stubborn person in that I'm kind of like that person where it's like, well, once you tell me to do it, I don't really want to do it anymore.
Yeah,
like,
I think we all do that, Jenna. Don't feel bad.
It's definitely a part of me. It's hard to be driven that way, but I think December, I was so lucky that I had so many different requests for the holidays, but I also was working because I need to, you know, that's not just like a financial thing. It was definitely a mental thing. I'm like, I've been working since I'm 9. I can't not work. Like I need to have that in my life. But with that combination, I was like drawing on my lunch breaks at work. Like I had to hustle to get these people these things by Christmas. And that pressure was intense, but I kept telling myself, well, you know what? Like you can rest when you're dead kind of attitude. But in my head, it was like rest in January when Christmas is over and nobody cares about wanting a picture from you, Jenna. But that didn't happen. It kept going. I was like, I did not expect that. So it's funny. Like you don't necessarily ask for it. If you just keep doing the things that you want to do, I really do think that door opening situation is real. It's about energy and like what you're putting your spirit and your time into. Things just start to happen. It sounds floofy, but like that's how it's happening. I think that's how I'm talking to you right now.
Of course,
we wouldn't have met.
And I wouldn't have been here having the honor of speaking to you, the opportunity, the great, amazing opportunity of speaking to you if I wouldn't have made that slight step forward years ago. So, you know, like you were talking about, it takes that timing where you understand your energy, your spirit, wanting more, knowing you deserve more, because we deserve better. We deserve to do what we want to do, not what we have to do. And once you make that slight step moving forward in the right direction, the options are endless, you know?
And it's doing it for yourself too, because I think a lot of us, we were talking about relationships earlier, like we're all looking to kind of like have some outside source make us feel better. And I'm not saying that doesn't still happen. Hey, I don't know if you saw my face when you say it's an honor to talk to me, I like shrivel up a little bit. Like sometimes I'm embarrassed by that. It's so sweet, but like there's still that part of me. But like we get attention in other ways that fulfill us, but it's nice to have it fulfilled from something that you're contributing to, as opposed to like I'm looking for this significant other to make me feel better, or for this job to give me approval. It's really important that we realize everybody, no matter what kind of trauma you've come from, what kind of upbringing, how many people told you you're shit, like, or how the world is looking at you based on like your experience or things you can't help, like the color of your skin. Like it's so important that you yourself realize you can give yourself, and you make those little baby steps and just do what you want. And I think it really results in some positive days and like less pressure. You know, I have to make myself happy.
Yeah. And I think that, yes, we can. And, you know, I think that the past year has helped us all, like you mentioned, sit down and realize, what do you want to do? What makes me happy? What do I want to do? And we deserve that. Now it's a whole different year, and we're starting off right. Most of us are entrepreneurs, and it took baby steps to get to where we're at, and now we're starting to run. It's no longer baby steps. We're not crawling anymore. We're running, and that's because the universe is ready for what we have to offer. But we
But
have
we're
to
ready, and we're
Mhm.
ready. And you know
Mhm.
what? Sometimes I think it's hard for some people, like the whole what do I want to do thing. Like maybe I try to put myself in different perspectives. Like, hey, maybe you are fortunate because you are aware of whatever thing made you feel good. Sometimes people aren't aware of that. I think if you don't know the answer to that, like thinking back to whatever you did to relax or to escape trauma, for example, or like hard times, think about whatever that was. Like maybe for
Mhm.
you, it was talking to people and like trying to bring out the best of other things. And that made you feel alive. For me,
Mhm.
I would hide out and draw. So I had that
Mhm.
thing, but maybe people don't know what it is. And that's okay. So if that's the case, I would just suggest like going out and trying things. I
Yeah.
still do that. I still like, that's why I love traveling. I'm like, I can't handle knowing that there's other cultures and food or experiences that I haven't had yet. It kills me. Like I
Mhm.
need to try it. I think people should just try things then if they don't have that answer. Like that is the way to make sure you're paying attention to yourself.
Mhm. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, you can't say you don't like something until you try it. I tell my kids that all the time. And I tend to
Definitely.
tell that myself.
Me
Like,
too. Yeah.
and I know what I'm allergic to. So I know what not to give them, and I know what not to take. After that, it's like we're gonna explore the shit of all these
Go
fruits
wild.
and
Yeah.
veggies.
Yeah. Go
Yeah,
wild.
you have to experiment with things, be open to things to
Hmm.
really get to know who you are, to bring out the best of who you are into whatever it is that you're um experimenting in to become, whether it's an artist, whether it's a musician, whatever it may be. You have to be open to the universe to be able to be a better version of yourself, to give off a better product or service or whatever it is that you do. And I'm all for it. So yeah.
Being open means it's okay to mess it up too. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
have answers. If people ask me like I don't have my LLC yet. We were talking about that earlier. There are things that are still, it feels like a big deal when you're trying to do something and you just keep doing it step by step, little by
Look,
little, and you make
look,
mistakes.
Jenna,
Don't have
Jenna.
answers. Do
Let
it.
me tell you this. Let me tell you this. Okay. So a lot of people don't know, but I started off as a clothing line. Before I even got my LLC, I was sketching like outfits. I knew that I like fashion. It's a girl thing. Um, and I was just in my mind, this is what could one day be. Um, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just working off of this. We're moving off of this, and it's cool. Everybody's journey is different. Don't beat yourself up. It's just a document to have in good standards with the government to one day opening up a bank account to do taxes. That's it. But
That's
if
all it
you could
is.
but if you could do this as a hobby until you get to where you're at, which you're big now, Jenna is on my show, then you start realizing, okay, I'm popping off, like I'm doing big things. Now I might look into that. But everybody's journey is different. You don't have to have that to be great. Once you know who you are, everything will fall into place. So don't feel bad. I'm not saying you do. People that are hearing and seeing this, don't feel bad if you don't have an LLC. As long as you know where you're going, what product and service you have to offer all of us, push that. Eventually, everything will fall into place.
Just keep giving yourself that attention, even if it's
Exactly.
step by step.
Okay, Jenna. Well, Jenna, it's clear to see that you know where you're going, and it's moving to see that you know where you're going, because it pushes our young entrepreneurs to know now that they're pushing what they like to do, that other people are doing it too, and they're very successful. So like you mentioned, you got into it in December for the holidays, and you thought that, okay, let's push it on through, thinking that January was going to be slower. And it actually became a thing. People actually are open and very receptive to what you have to offer. And that's what we need to pay attention to. We do one thing and realize that it's opening up opportunities and doors for us. So it's, once you're good at it, there's no stopping you. But I want to ask you, with Jenna made this, what are your core values?
Core values, I think I was thinking about this for a bit. This would apply to literally everything I do. This is whether it's relationships, work relationships, Jenna made this, just life in general. The most important things to me are just loyalty and integrity and being honest. And then I would say, it's hard to put it into one word, but just like honoring people and not losing what makes things special, whether it's regarding culture or a specific person. I just think it's really, I just like to give people nods. And like I spoke about this a little bit before, but just for example, like not speaking certain languages that our families spoke, or not having the recipes that they cooked, or just like, that's why I've drawn my grandparents and some of my great grandparents, is because like these are people that mattered, that went through struggles and did their best, and it's like they're gone now, and it's now what? I think about that sometimes. Like, I have all my family's photos. I'm the youngest of the cousins, and honestly, I don't think anyone, like, they like it. It's like, oh, that's nice. But like, if my grandma didn't have me to honor these things, they'd be gone right now. They'd probably be in some thrift store. Like, people aren't always interested in that. And I'm just really driven by honoring what people have done before and what they went through, and holding on to the things that make us special.
Exactly.
And doing so genuinely. Like I said, integrity, and just like trying to be real about things. And sometimes that's harder than it is to say. Like, people, for example, I've noticed just in the cultural difference of New York to Nashville, I think I have been a lot for people to handle. Like, just in how I communicate, I don't really have a filter. If nothing's really hard for me to say, because for me, I'm also big on like not wasting time. I think when you have traumatic upbringing, you kind of get attached to that. It's like, we can all die tomorrow, so I don't have time to waste on this bullshit, like. So with confrontation down here, people will do, I mean, even if it's something as simple as like, I don't like what you cooked for me at the restaurant, they will not say a word. People do not like confrontation. And to me, I've been trying to talk to the people that I've worked with down here about that. It's like, wouldn't you rather be uncomfortable for like 10 to 30 minutes as opposed to years? Or like, if it's a job, it's like, I see this person and work with them for a year, and I'm going to be uncomfortable, versus a conversation. I feel like, just be genuine, have integrity, speak your truth, and give people a little attention that need that as well. And to me, attention is honesty and love, Yeah.
And those are very important keys to just living a healthy life, a healthy lifestyle, because it no longer becomes about your life. It becomes about how you move in your life, in your path. So then it's the lifestyle. Once you learn how to do that in a healthy manner and good, then you're able to spread that goodness and that healthiness onto others and help others along the way.
And once you, it doesn't mean you do it right every time. I like to challenge myself. I said earlier that I've been working, like, I changed industries altogether just so I can not just be on the couch. I started working in retail, and I mean, nothing else was open. And I was like, let me just try it, why not? And I started as a seasonal employee, thinking I'll do it for like movie, they pay movie money, which is a whole other topic. But I'm like, let's just see what happens. On my third day of training, they're like, do you want to be a manager? I'm like, sure. Why not? But while doing that, I'm learning so much and I'm getting challenged on all these things that I talk about and I preach that are very important to me. It's like, it's a little easier when you're in the same industry surrounded by lots of different kinds of people, but kind of the same vibe. Like the restaurant industry is rawer, and they are upfront, and they are no filter people, and it's like a little bit more in your face. And now I'm in a retail world, one where I'm surrounded by almost all women, and I'm in the South, and it's corporate, and it's very different than what I'm used to. So it's been a really interesting challenge for me also to just like, you know, practice these things that I'm talking about. Like, be honest with the people that are different with you, learn to love people that like, they're very different than you, and maybe you guys don't agree on literally anything, and how can you interact with that person? Like, it's been interesting.
Yeah, and we have to apply that to our day to day. And you know, once it becomes a way of life, then it's easy to adapt it to anything else in your life.
Yeah, and
So
it's good
yeah,
and things will always come up that'll challenge you to that.
exactly. And like you mentioned, it's not always going to be a walk in the park. It's not going to be easy all the time. You know, sometimes it is going to be challenging, but we always have to have that genuineness, as you mentioned, and also the opportunity or being open to having communication with anybody. We have to talk. We talk to anybody and everybody every single day. But we have to be open to having the serious conversations, you know. Like you mentioned, it's easier to be uncomfortable 20, 30 minutes talking to someone about how you feel, how they feel, than to being uncomfortable the rest of your life. What do you think that will make a better world or better
That, yeah.
community? Hmm.
So this is hard. This is like, I can sit here and preach all the things that matter to me, and I can tell you about all the times they were successful and times that jived with me. But right now, things aren't jiving for people, and we are not seeing eye to eye, and that makes it so much harder. And I think that the answer to the question is what you said, which is communication.
I would agree. I feel like once you give another person the opportunity to express themselves as to why they're saying this or they're expressing this, then maybe you can kind of understand where they're coming from. It doesn't make it right, but we're all entitled to an opinion here in the U.S. And you know, the thing is, we have to express to others as well as we are listening to them why we feel that that is wrong, you know, and just understanding people, like you mentioned, is important to be progressive. Um, but I tell people all the time, we have to come together. Unity is what's really going to save our butts from totally destroying one another.
Yeah.
You know, and there's to me, obviously there's races out here, but we come from different places, different tribes or cultures. But at the end of the day, the decision is, are you a good person or not? Good people or bad people? Because we have good and bad people in each community. So at the end of the day, it's not about race. It's about, are you being a good person to the general public or to this world or to your own community, to your own
And what it
neighbor?
comes down to is the people who aren't good to each other are not good to themselves.
Hmm.
That's what it comes down to. Like, most of these people are like, it's the same way like when I was talking about work. Like, in those moments where I'm like, oh, you didn't really ace that communicating with that person who's different with you today. You were kind of snippy, or you're treating that person a certain way. Like, I don't feel good about that when I go home. And, you know, like, ultimately, if I'm not feeling good about it when I go to bed, then I'm not good to myself. Then I didn't ace that day for me or for the other person, you know?
Hmm.
And that's just a small little example. The people who are that angry,
Yeah. And
imagine.
that's true. But it starts within, you know, it starts with working on ourselves. You only
Mhm.
feel that type of remorse when you say something snippy, like you said, or are a certain way, just slightly in a day, because you have been working on yourself. So you realize, hey, you know, I could have fixed that and I should fix that. And then the better side of us, we try to fix it, you know? Um, And we're not here to fix everybody, but at least on our day-to-day lives, we focus on being a good individual to self and then others, because it reflects off of how we
Yeah.
treat ourselves. I'm going to ask you because I'm very interested on how successful entrepreneurs like yourself, you're very successful at what you do. You know, you have great pieces of art. You're a great person, not just to people around you, but to humanity. And you're always looking to help others. I always pick entrepreneurs' brain. I want to know what your pieces of advice are for our young up and coming entrepreneurs. Like, what can we learn from you, including myself? What can we learn from you? What are your pieces of advice for us?
For me, I just keep doing what makes me feel good. So, and then the step is it's what I said before. It's like, it's just coming. Like the other day I was like, man, I really just want to draw Freddie Mercury because I want to draw Freddie Mercury, not because it's something that somebody wants to have. Like, and that felt so good. It's just my main advice is just to keep doing what you like doing. Like, whether it's art, whether it's music, if you're happy, you're going to attract things. You're going to attract opportunities. You're going to meet people. And if you're tired one day, that's okay too. Like, it's okay to stop. You're not lazy. like just be patient with yourself and keep saying, how do I feel? Like, what do I need right now? And that's funny. It sounds kind of selfish actually, but it's not. It's, if you want to care for others and you have to care for yourself first. And that's why I drew Freddie Mercury the other day. I'm like, I have to draw, 4 other pictures for people that are hired, but like, I need to make sure I have myself in check right now. And in order to get myself motivated, I need to draw Freddie Mercury today. So
Exactly.
pay attention to how you feel and just keep going. And if there's a day that you need to take off from it, give yourself the rest, because it is still work. It becomes work, and to stay motivated under those circumstances is difficult sometimes. So like, just keep in mind what you need. Do you need to go out and get a coffee and shut it off for the day like you would if you were working 5 days a week? Like, give yourself time and just
Yeah.
keep doing what you're doing, and it's going to come about. And little by little, and when you're scared, make a list and check it off as slow as you need to.
Yeah. And last year I experienced a situation where I was just pushed and pushed and pushed. And I was just like, wait a minute, like, no, like, this is my train. Like, I go at the speed I want to. And I had to take a step back and distance myself to understand what it is I want to do, how I want to do it, and at what pace. And it comes in time where you have to realize what pace are you on, because the same pace that you may be going through or going with your niche is not what my niche's pace should be. So I took my time, and I take my time with what I do. And you have to be able to understand what makes you feel comfortable when you're doing it, because somebody else's pattern and speed, it might not be yours.
Know your worth, do what's comfortable for you. There is no cookie cutter situation. Like, for me, contracts are not my thing. To me, that
Yeah.
makes something that's about feelings and like experience, it makes it too clinical for me, but that's who I am. And someone else might feel real good with that contract, and that's okay. So you do what's best for you.
Yeah, and I would agree. Do what makes you feel good. Like you've been stressing, you have to make sure that you're good within. And, it's okay to listen to people when they're giving you pointers, but ultimately you decide what you're doing. So make sure you can channel those pieces of advice out when it's not working for you. So thank you for that. And at the end, I always do like a big, because I'm very big on shout outs. So I want to know who Jenna wants to shout out. This is a great opportunity to just shout people out that have been in your corner, that have been supporting you, or just people you look up to.
I'd say there's 3, and I'll do it quick just so I don't run on and take your time forever. One would be Angel, who's from Angel of Words. He's somebody that is also doing a podcast and talking about difficult things and encouraging people and doing his best to be a diplomat no matter what his opinion is. And we met each other in a pizzeria. He's the one who connected you and I. It was the same way of how I started this conversation with you. I just think that there's a lot of times where I get really passionate and really upset about maybe celebrities or like certain chefs, that people who have platforms already and aren't utilizing them. It makes me so upset because I'm like, you have no idea the impact you can make. And you guys both didn't just sit there and complain like an old Jewish man about who's not using their platform. You made it. And I think that that's really important. So I'd like to shout out you and Angel of Words. And then my last two shout outs are for a gal named Willow Scribner. She is of Willow and Wood. She's a musician and a friend of mine. And then Abby Walters, who is also a musician and a friend of mine. They are both my two dear friends here in Nashville. And I complain a lot about how hard it is to make connections here because I'm a New Yorker and like how different I am. And these two have just like inspired me so much. I would say that they were my biggest supporters in this past year of like, hey, like, what are you doing? What have you drawn? Abby got me to do a children's book for her, along with many other portraits. She's a big supporter of women too. She got me into a market. You know, they've just always been in my corner and we've all pushed each other. And I can't tell you how valuable having a tribe like that is anywhere, but just in general.
Yeah. Well, Jenna, you said the key word tribe. So I tell people all the time, we all need a tribe. And it doesn't matter how close it is or how big it is. We all need that. We are individuals and we need to pair up with similar energies with people that have similar visions. You can have eyesight where you see things and you see what you're doing. Okay, nice, great. I support you, pat on the back. But you have to have vision to see what you're doing. Like, whoa, like you're uplifting people. You're putting your art, your magic onto a canvas, encouraging others, and it's a masterpiece. So you have to have vision and like-minded individuals with that vision, and also same energy, to keep everything floating in the right direction to evolve. People that surround themselves with like-minded people tend to thrive, and you
Yes.
clearly have that tribe, and it's very important to
And
keep.
sometimes you're very different. Like, I'd say the three of us are very different individuals, but the things that we have in common is that we like to encourage and uplift people.
Yep.
That's a huge
Yep.
thing to have in common. One can like country music and the other one can think it's disgusting, but if you want to uplift people, then that's a great thing to keep your tribe going.
Yep. And like we mentioned, we gotta be open to new things. It took me a while to get used to country music, and guess what? A girl over here sipping and hearing country music, and I'm okay. But I just want to thank you for making time to being on House of Ramirez. I want to bring you back on. You have a lot of things in the works, and you're very, very inspirational. So I think we need more of that. So this is not the first time you're going to be on House of Ramirez, and I just want to thank you for actually being here today. So thank you
so much for having me, and it was so great to talk to you, Leslie.
Yes, ma'am. All right, until next time.
Bye, guys.
Make sure to follow House of Ramirez on all social media platforms.